Okay, now we're over on the driver's side. First thing you want to check is the driver's mirror. Make sure this arm is sturdy. Make sure this casing is in good condition and sturdy also. Make sure your flat mirror has no cracks in it. Make sure your convex mirror has no cracks in it. Next, you want to check the driver's window. Make sure there's no cracks in it. Make sure the seals are in good shape. Another thing you need to check is this sticker right here. This is for the weight of the bus, and this has to be on the driver's side and on the passenger side. It should say 5'4", which is 54,000 pounds in the year 2020. Make sure you have your bus number on the side for identification. Now we're going to check up top, clearance lights. Make sure all your clearance lights are on and that the covers are in good shape. Then you want to check the passenger windows. Make sure they're in good shape, there's no cracks in them, and they're in good condition. And come down, do the same thing as up top. Check your clearance lights and make sure they're on and make sure the covers are in good shape. Also, each bus should have this identification on it, the name of the company and the TCP number that's required to be on the buses. Now, next thing we want to check is your luggage. Open your luggage door. Look inside, make sure it's clean, and make sure there's nothing inside, because our passengers want to use these doors so they can put their items inside. And you check every door, every day. Let's go down to this end of the bus. Make sure this door right here for fuel, make sure it is closed, and make sure this cap for the diesel is secure. You don't want to leave the yard and have this open because diesel will start coming out. More clearance lights to check. Another thing, make sure you have your SFMTA sticker on the bus. We have these on the front, we have these on the driver's side, the passenger side, and on the rear bumper. Next thing we're going to talk about now is checking of the tires. There are 3 tools that we use for this. One, we call this the tire buddy. We use this to beat the side of the tire to make sure we get a strong bounce back, which is usually an indication that your air pressure is where it should be. Then we have an air pressure gauge so we can check the actual pressure of the tire. And the last thing we use is the tire tread measurer. And we have to have a minimum of 430 seconds on the tire. Now, we're going over here to the tire. First thing you want to do is take the tire buddy, beat on it, and make sure it bounces back real quick. If it does that, that's a good sign that you're at the proper air pressure. Next, do a visual check. Check around on the tire. Make sure there's no bubbles, no cracks, any type of damage on the tire visibly that you can see. Then the next thing you want to do is check the tread. This is the type of gauge that we use. Push down on this, push the stem out, get in between the tire, push it down, look at it for 30 seconds. This one is at 1430 seconds, which is good, because remember I said the minimum is 430 seconds. Now the next thing you want to do is come down here to the rim. Check and make sure there's no rust on here, no cracks on here, that it's in good shape. Then you want to check your lug nuts. Grab them with your hand and see if they're tight and it's secure. And another thing, check this seal right here. This seal helps keep in the oil. If you see leaks coming out here, that's a bad sign. You shouldn't be using this today. Then the last thing we do is come down here to the valve stem, and we want to check the air pressure. What we do is use this air pressure gauge right here. This is an important tip. When you use this air pressure gauge and you push it up on the valve stem, do not wiggle this around a lot or else you will break the stem. Just push it on, push down to get your pressure. Now, the pressure on here is a maximum of 130 PSI. So you don't want to be past 130 PSI. You can be below that a little bit, but the maximum is 130 PSI. And this is what you do when you check out your tires. Okay. Okay, now we're back to the rear of the bus. First thing we're going to take a look at is the bike rack. Make sure your rack is in good condition because our passengers are going to be using this. Another thing to do, also, check the reflectors on the bike rack. Make sure they're in good condition because these are needed when you're out driving. You may have to stop the bus. Maybe your lights aren't working, but the reflectors, people's headlights, especially at night, they'll see it and they'll notice the bus. Next, we're going to go inside the engine compartment. But before we go in, there's some other things you should check on the bus. One, make sure you have a license plate. Two, make sure you have an SFMTA sticker on here. And also, check the bumper. Check for the condition of the bumper and make sure it's in good shape. Make sure it's not any cracks or any damage to it. I'm going over here to this side, hit the release handle so that I can get inside the engine compartment. You open this door right here, push this yellow handle in, and you'll be able to open up the engine compartment. Now, once you have the engine compartment open, one thing you want to check for, make sure there's no fluid splattered up on the door or splattered on the inside of the compartment. That means you have a pretty good leak in here. Now, these are some of the items we need to check when we're back here. One, check your coolant level inside this window right here. Next, you want to check your transmission oil. This is the dipstick right here. You unscrew this and pull it out and check your transmission oil. Then you want to check your oil, and the dipstick for that is right here. Then after you've done the fluids, check your belts. Make sure there are no cracks in here. Make sure the belt is sturdy, it's not flimsy, that means it's in good shape. And you report it, getting back to the fluids, if you're low on fluids, remember, report this to your supervisor so we can report it to the shop so that you can be topped off. Because we don't want a bus to go out here that's low on fluids because that may cause us to not finish a run. And this is what we do for the rear of the bus. Okay, when you're closing the door, remember, right here, push this cylinder over so this lines up, and that way you can close the door. Okay, last thing we're going to do before we pull the rack over is check the top clearance light and make sure that that light is on. And if you have a windshield on the back of your bus like this one does, make sure there's no damage to it, no cracks to it. Check that it has a bus number. Also, if it's early in the morning or at night, check and make sure the license plate lights are working. If all these are in good shape, you're in good shape. Now check down below. Underneath, you want to check for fluid leaks. Make sure there's no fluid leaks or nothing hanging down from the chassis. And everything's in good shape. And we're done with the rear of the bus. All right, now we're on the passenger side of the bus and we're going to do our inspection for this side. Just like on the opposite side, at the top, check your clearance lights. Make sure they're on, make sure they're not damaged. All the way down the bus, check your passenger windows. Make sure there's no cracks in them, make sure they're not damaged. Come down below, make sure your SFMTA sticker is on your side of the bus. Now we're going to go inside this door, in this compartment, and check for our flares and for our triangles. Now the flares, there's 3 of them in this canister. We use these the same as we do the triangles. Put them out the same amount of spacing if you're using the flares. Then we have the triangles. They're inside this case. And if you're in an accident and you're out on the freeway or the streets, you have to put these out. I believe there's 2 in the back and 1 in the front. This is the compartment where they go in. Now, You have to check the tires just as we did on the opposite side. Check on visual, check and make sure there's no bubbles, no cracks, no types of damage. You're gonna check your tire tread again. You come down here below, check the ring, make sure there's no rust, no cracks, and check your lug nuts, all of them. Make sure they're tight. Check your seal, make sure you don't see any oil leaking out here. Then you have your valve stem. Check your air pressure again as we did on the passenger side of the bus. And it's the same thing, 130 PSI max. And don't forget, which I almost did, use your tire buddy, beat on your tire and make sure it bounces back strong, which means your air pressure is good. And come down here to this door. This is the DEF. You open this, make sure this cap is on tight. You don't want DEF flowing out of here while you're driving the bus. The same thing for the diesel. Make sure this cap is on tight. You don't want diesel fuel pouring out while you're driving. This compartment right here is for the battery. It's obvious that it's on because the lights are on. But if you come to your bus in the morning, it seems like you don't have any power, check inside here, that switch may be off. And come down here to the door. Check the glass, make sure it's in good shape. Check your seals. Make sure they're firm and they're in good shape also. And after that, work your way down to the front of the bus. Check this tire with the same procedure we used before. Hit it, check the tread, check the wheel, make sure there's no cracks in this. Check your lug nuts, make sure they're tight. Check your seal, make sure there's no oil leaking out of here. Then you're gonna go below, find your pressure or your stem, and check your air pressure. Next thing we're going to do is check the passenger door of the bus. Make sure the glass is in good shape. No cracks in it, no damages. Check your stairwell. Make sure it's clear. Make sure the rails are in good shape. Make sure it's clear for passengers to step up. Now I'm going to shut this door. You have to check to make sure this weight sticker that's on the driver's side, make sure it's on the passenger side. Has the 54 for the amount of weight and the 2020 for the year. Make sure that's on there. And the last thing you want to do, check the passenger side mirror. Make sure this arm is tight. Make sure the mirror casing on the mirror is tight and in good shape. Check your flat mirror, make sure there's no cracks in it. Check your convex mirror, make sure there's no cracks in that. And this concludes the pre-trip check of our bus.